we are talking today is about meristematic tissue, right? As I said earlier, there are two basic tissues, meristematic tissue and permanent tissue. So now we will be dealing today with the meristematic tissue. What is meristematic tissue? Tissue, we know, a group of cells. Now what is meristematic? Meristematic means a group of cells which are in a continuous state of division. Okay. Now these are the cells which are helpful in the formation of the primary plant body. Okay. Now meristematic tissue is basically of two types. When we study about the primary plant body, meristematic tissue can be considered into two types. Those are primary meristems and secondary meristem. As I said earlier, when we are talking the flow chart of the tissues, primary meristems are those tissues which are coming from the primary embryonic stages, and these constitute the major part of the primary plant body. And these primary meristems are also made up of three types depending on the position from where they are occurring. And again there is secondary meristems. Secondary meristems are those types of tissues which are occurring from the permanent tissues, and this may ultimately lead to the secondary growth of the plant body. Okay. Now we will talk about what is meristematic tissue, why we are supposed to talk in detail. Meristematic tissue means in any cell, the initiation of the cell or division of the cell, maybe it is a if we consider a unicellular organism and its evolution up to multicellular organism, what is happening, how the evolution is occurring because of the division of the cell. Okay. Any structure which gets modified, any structure which gets modified or evolved from unicellular to multicellular organism is exhibiting a continuous state of cell division. So this capacity is present only in plants. We do not have the division of cells occurring in the animal cells. So that is the variation between animal tissue and the plant tissue, because the animal tissue does not have in a continuous state of cell division. It will stop at a certain extent. But whereas in plant tissue we have meristematic cells which will have a continuous state of division which will increase the height of the plant. So for example, similarly cells in different types of structures, in immature cells or newly growing cells, what will happen in a plant, in a newly growing plant, there are certain structures or there are certain cells which are in a continuous state of division, because of which what will happen, a small plantlet, if it is a small plantlet, will ultimately develop and it will grow into a big tree. Right. So this process of increase of length from here to here is occurring because of the continuous cell division, multiplication of the cell. So the tissues which are present in the embryonic stage, which are in a state of cell division, are present in that particular area. So the tissues of that particular areas which are in embryonic stage will undergo division, and that is because of the, and that type of tissues are called as meristematic tissue. Now this meristematic tissue will give to the continuous growth of the plant either in the lengthwise or in the widthwise of the plant. These meristematic tissue are in a continuous state of division and are confined only to certain portions of the plant, like it may be present in the roots, it may be present in the stems, or it may be present in the leaves of some plant bodies. Now the presence of meristematic tissue is the special character when compared to that of the animal tissue. The origin, on the basis of origin, there are two types, primary and secondary. Now when we come to the structure of cells, how you can differentiate that a particular cell, what are the character, what particular tissue is a meristematic tissue. So how you can differentiate between parenchymal cells, simple tissue, complex tissue, right? So where there are some basic characteristics where we can say that this is a particular meristematic tissue. So what are the characteristics of a cell? The meristematic cells Okay. These meristematic cells can be differentiated or can be identified easily when we compare with that of the other types of cells. So, what are the few basic characteristics with which you are identifying that in a particular tissue, these are meristematic tissues, these are simple tissues, these are complex tissues. Now, the first and the basic characteristic of the meristematic tissue is cells are isodiametric. And next one is isodiametric, means of more or less same diameter. Next, cells are closely arranged without intercellular spaces. What is intercellular spaces? Intercellular spaces is a space between the two cells. And here the cell walls are, what is the composition of cell wall here? Cell walls are made up of thin cellulosic wall. Cell walls are thin and made up of cellulose. Here, if we are having a cell wall which is thin and made up of cellulose, and again you are also having a dense cytoplasm is present, and you will have the presence of dense cytoplasm with plastids. Next one is, you will see, as we say that there is a cell wall, there is a dense cytoplasm with plastid, we get a doubt that you can also have vacuoles here, but coincidentally we say that vacuoles are absent in the meristematic cells. Okay, these are the points which say that to identify that this particular type of cells are meristematic cells. What cells are mostly isodiametric? These cells are closely arranged without intercellular spaces, something like this. There is no intercellular space. Intercellular space means the space between this space is called as intercellular space. Okay, so we don't have intercellular space. We have closely arranged cells without any intercellular spaces. Now the cell wall composition, if we consider the cell wall composition of the meristematic cell, is it is thin and mostly made up of cellulose, and these cells have dense cytoplasm with plastids, and we don't have vacuoles. Now we can say that the cambial cells are also meristematic cells, because cambial cell also undergo a state of division of cells, because of which you get vascular cambium, interfascicular cambium, intrafascicular cambium, and because of which secondary growth occurs in the plant body. So how we say that cambial cell is different from that of the meristematic cell. However, the cambial cells will show some variation from that of the meristematic cells. If it is a cambial cell, which also can be called as one of the meristematic cells. So what will be the characteristics of cambial cells? Here these cells will be long and spindle shape. Here the cell wall will be thick. Okay, so cambial cell is also showing a continuous state of multiplication or division of cells at that, which leads to secondary growth. So we can say it is also having some sort of meristematic tissue capacity, but the variation is these are much longer and spindle shape when compared to normal meristematic tissue or cells, and these cell walls are thicker. Okay, now these are the basic characteristic of identification of meristematic cells in a tissue organization of the plant body. We can, on basis of these steps or points, we can say that okay, these are meristematic tissues, these are simple tissues. Okay, now we will go for the classification of the meristematic tissue. What is the classification? Meristematic tissue classification. Okay. Now, on the basis of the places, or on the basis of the origin, on the basis of the position, and on the basis of function it is undergoing, meristematic tissue can be classified into different categories. What are the criteria there? The meristems can be classified on the basis of origin. Second, on the mode of development. On the mode of nature of initiating cells. On the mode of function which it is carrying over, and on the mode of type cell division and the growth patterns. Okay, the division of meristematic tissues is of different types on the basis of the mode or the origin of the tissue from where it is originating, or mode of development from which part, what is it developed, and what are the initiating cells which are involved in the occurrence of meristematic tissue, and what type of function. What type of function it is carrying out at a particular place, that is about on the basis of function, and on the basis of cell division, and because of that type of cell division, what type of growth patterns are being shown in the plant body. These are the basic types or criteria is taken into consideration for the classification of the meristematic tissue. Now, when we come to the position or occurrence, as we said, the classification of meristematic tissue, we will be talking the meristematic tissue on the basis of position or occurrence. There are three types. If the meristems are at the apical position, apical meristems; at intercalary position, intercalary meristem; and if it is a lateral position, it is called as lateral meristem. Okay. Now, next type of classification is on the basis of stages or method of development. So, the stages and method of development, either it may be a promeristem, first form meristem, or if it is coming under the embryonic stages, embryonic meristems or urmeristem, or we can say the development method of development has of two types, those are promeristems and embryonic meristems. Next, if the classification of meristematic tissue is done on the basis of the initial cells from which the meristematic tissue is being originated, then that will be primary meristem and secondary meristem. As I said earlier, when the beginning of the meristematic tissue, basic two types, primary meristem and secondary meristem. If they are developing from the embryonic initials, then that is primary meristem. If it is developing from the permanent tissue and leading to the formation of secondary growth, then that will be a secondary meristem. Next, on the basis of the functions which it is carrying out, meristematic tissue can be divided into protoderm, procambium and the ground meristem. Next, on the basis of cell division and growth pattern, what type of cell division and the growth pattern which it is following, the meristematic tissues may be of three types here, that is mass meristem, rib meristem and plate meristem. So, as per your syllabus, you are having is only the occurrence of position on the basis of position, what are the different types of meristematic tissue. This is with reference to your multiple choice questions. You may get a question like method of development. On the basis of method of development, what type of meristematic tissues are there, or promeristems comes under what type of meristematic tissue classification, or on the basis of functions, meristematic tissue is of how many types, protoderm, procambium and ground meristem, and on the basis of growth pattern and cell division, you have mass, rib and plate meristems. Okay, this now as for your syllabus, we are supposed to study about position and occurrence of the meristematic tissue, apical, intercalary and lateral meristem. Now, look at this diagram here. As we said earlier, on the basis of the occurrence of the position from where the meristematic tissue is occurring, we said there are of three types. Those are apical meristem, intercalary meristem and lateral meristem. Now, if we take the TS of a shoot, if for example, if it is taken, next here, all the apical meristems are the meristems which are present at the tips of the roots, stems, leaves, tip of the shoots. So, the tissues or the meristems which are present towards the apex, which helps in the increase of the length of the plant body, those are called as apical meristems. As the diagram depicts, that it is towards the peak point or at the apex point. It may be either shoot or root or leaf. Next comes the intercalary meristems. What is intercalary meristem here? Intercalary meristem is a meristem which is present in between the two nodes at the internodal region, and it is a meristem which is in between the apical and lateral meristem, which is helpful in the increase of the special structures like branches, leaves, and it will help in the increase of the width of the thickness of the plant body. Next is lateral meristems. These are lateral in position and these are parallel to the axis of the stem. These are the meristem which will increase the width and thickness of the plant body. So, there are three types of meristems on the basis of the position. As we said, apical meristem at the top or apex positions of the root, stem, leaf. Intercalary meristem, a meristem which is present between the two nodes at internodal position, and the lateral meristem which are lateral in position but are parallel to the axis of the plant body, and these are helpful increasing it in the laterally. So, these are the different types of meristematic tissue according to the occurrence of their position in the plant body.